welcome to Tarmac. I'm Dave.
I'm Matthew, and today we're bringing a little bit of Sweden to New Zealand because we've got this, the new Volvo C40 Recharge.
That's right, it's the brand's first all-electric compact crossover that's obviously going to be as safe as houses. Come, let's take a look at this. So the C40 has been basically introduced this year as I guess another model in Volvo's move towards fully electrical vehicles. There was the XC40 that came out last year that had a little bit of ICE involved in it, but now this one being the full BEV model. There are two models available in this C40. One is the Plus, which is this one, and the other one is the Ultimate, which has two motors. But let's concentrate on this one. As we're looking around here, you can see it's got the whole new electrical Volvo face, so very much enclosed, very much involved in a sort of a more aerodynamic, slipstreamy type of thing. The big thing to point out are these lights here, which are obviously the Thor hammer, but they're now LED and very advanced and state-of-the-art is what they're telling them. On the Ultimate, there are sort of, I think they're LED fog lights or in a different version, but as you see, what you've got is this. The other thing under here, what's known as a frunk space, because there is no engine under here. So look at that, a space to put your charging cables or maybe a few groceries, maybe the odd beer or two. Shh, don't say that. It's a safety vehicle. Let's look around the side. Our review model comes in this beautiful, what they call fjord blue. It is lovely, it's so good, particularly when it contrasts against these black accents here, there and everywhere around there. In terms of size, it's 4.44 meters long, 1.87 meters wide and 1.6 meters tall. So even I can actually see over the top of it. And actually you can see the top up here. There's a lovely full panoramic roof up here. The big thing to point out are these 19-inch wheels down here. They're diamond cut, really good, really aerodynamic, which is great. And also look at this roof line. It really tapers down to the rear, gives it this lovely flow. The rear itself is really funky. I mean, look, these sort of funky sort of roofline spoilers. There's another spoiler here. The glass, as you see, is very tapered. The good thing, look at these lights. You can go boop, boop, and then chases up really cool from there. Lovely LEDs. The Volvo badging, your C40, your recharging area, a little bit of protection around here, and also a kicker tailgate that opens up to 413 litres of boot space, so enough to basically put in whatever you want. Let's see what charges this Recharge. As this is the Plus model, it's basically got a 69 kilowatt hour battery that once fully charged will give you around about 438 kilometers of range, which is not bad. As it is the Plus model, it's got front wheel drive that's got a motor that gives you 170 kilowatts of power and 330 newton meters of torque. 0 to 100 in 7.4 seconds, so it's not sluggish, but if you go for the four-wheel drive Ultimate model, you guys basically get it, I think it's 4.7 seconds 0 to 100, so it is faster. Anyway, speaking of things that are a little bit slower, Matthew's inside and he'll show you what's going in there.
Maybe a little bit slower on a day like today, but there's nothing slow about the entry into this C40 Recharge, because it's not only very easy to get in and out of, but once you're in, the car actually turns on immediately. There's no on-off button. Well, there is of course safety in mind with Volvo, so it's not like a child or something can get in with the key and just drive off. You have to be of a certain weight to activate it. I think that's something that Dave definitely won't have a problem with. Speaking of weight, well, owning a car like this makes things sort of way less on your mind, because the interior is completely leather free. Instead you have fabric seats, you have sort of inserts of cloth and non-leather materials all over the cabin, including the steering wheel here, which is leather free as well. The key things to note here are, even though the cabin might look dark, it's actually got flashes of metallic finishes all over the place. You've got chrome outlining all of the air vents, you've got gloss black plastic along the middle here, and all of the sort of carpety inserts on the sides and in the doors are all in charcoal, so there is a sort of offset as well in terms of the color. The other thing I'd really like to point out is what Volvo calls their origin story, or their origin if you like. And all throughout the inserts, so over here on the dashboard as well as on the door cards, you have what looks like a map, and it is actually a map, in fact, of central Gothenburg, where Volvo is originally from, which I find really cool actually. It's got textures to it and all the little nooks and crannies if you like. Speaking of nooks and crannies, they've certainly thought out the practicalities of this interior. You've got a decent sized glove box in there. You've got plenty of storage in the door bins as well, all lined in a soft material to prevent your keys and stuff from jiggling about. You've got storage under the central armrest here, like so. You've got a little drop bin sort of thing there. You've got your cup holders, space for your phone there, and if I push that, there's another space for a phone in there. So it really covers all of a family's needs. Speaking of keeping you covered, well, that screen has got plenty going for it. So let's take a look. In typical Volvo and sort of Scandi design fashion, the layout of this screen is very neat, very tidy, and everything sort of compartmentalized, as you can see on this main screen. You've got your maps, which include shortcuts to find charging stations nearby. You've got your audio input, Apple CarPlay, and your range. And if you want to dive into one of those, say like your range, there you go. You can take a look at the estimated range, how much you have in terms of whether you're driving in a sporty fashion or a bit more conservatively. Consumption is there too, and plenty more to do on this screen here. Press that button down there and it takes you again back to this screen here, which is your home screen in effect. Press these 4 icons there and it takes you to your app drawer essentially. So the layout is a bit more like an Android phone if you like. Click over there and that's all of your audio options there. You've got phone and your sort of phone connectivity down there, maps of course. And the really interesting thing with this is it comes inbuilt with not only Google's Play Store, but also Google Assistant, which means I can ask it a question by saying, "Hey Google." The other key things on here, as I just showed you, was the range assistant. But if you go into car status, you can also check a few more little monitoring parts about your car. But the really key bit of this screen is the settings wheel over here. So if I go in there, I can see all of the different customization options for the car. So firstly, I can sign in with my Google account there and then sort of create a profile for myself and adapt certain parts like the memory seats and all of that according to my profile. However, the first option there, driving, is where you can turn on several of the safety systems or turn them off. You can also have an off-road mode, and this is also where you activate your one pedal driving, which, as Dave will show you later on in the drive. If I go back to the settings menu, like so, I can also go into the charging menu there and take a look at what my battery percentage is, and also in terms of set some limits and a timer as well for charging if I do want to. Another key thing with this interior is the controls menu there. That's where you can customize several other little nuances if you want that make your car uniquely yours. So tilting the mirrors and the brightness and the colors of the interior lights and stuff like that. So there's plenty more to play around with on this screen here. The screen in front of the driver, or your instrument cluster, is again neatly laid out. You have your right side there with your power or recharge meter, and then your left side there with the speed. In the middle, we've got the maps going on right now, but again, you can see there's some more information about the battery and your consumption, but you can make that go away if you like entirely with a button on the steering wheel, or you can also look at several other things about your trip and your sort of computer information when it comes to consumption. The other cool thing is the steering wheel. It's again leather free, but it feels a very sort of leatherish material. You can also have the option to have it heated, which is nice for a colder day like today. And again, those metal inserts are quite key in terms of breaking up the black materials and black stitching. So very, very nicely styled and in typical Volvo fashion, if you like. Volvo C40 Recharge not only looks dynamic, but is also supposed to drive dynamically. So let's go and take a look. said, the new C40 Recharge, one thing I can tell straight away is the way it's built so solidly. You open the doors and close them and you get such a reassuring feel of safety, which is typical of Volvo. But when you sit inside, you feel even more cocooned, I guess, in that aura of safety.
Scandinavian safety, gotta love it. You're right, it does feel so well put together, very almost industrial European. It's built to last, and it feels that way. Actually, on that sort of stuff, is visibility seems a little bit limited for me. Looking out the back, there's not much to see out the back, and when you're trying to navigate around sort of small areas in town and stuff like that, I think the camera in this is a little bit not basic, but it's just kind of quite insular.
It is mounted quite low on the rear, so it does make it harder to see if you have higher objects, I guess.
The seating position's really high though, and I think a lot of Volvo owners or a lot of people that are wanting a sort of a crossover will like this high seating position. For me, it's great because I can actually see over things. Yeah, we all know my height.
There is an off-road mode as well when you're feeling a bit more adventurous than just a regular city commute.
And then there's the battery. Look, the stuff that's really good about this is when you've got it in normal BEV mode, it just cruises. It just goes along so nicely. The difference happens, and my able assistants will do that when you go into your one touch driving or one foot driving or one pedal driving, which once you go there, if I take my foot off the accelerator, it's really quite abrupt, and I think those behind will be going, what the hell is this guy doing? So it's just as well these are a safe vehicle, because yeah. No, I think there's a time and a place, and you'll get used to it. You won't let go quickly, so you'll actually be able to cruise a little bit better. But if you just take your foot off, it is quite abrupt, a little bit too abrupt, I find.
Speaking of abrupt, that rear sort of 3/4, the roof slopes very steeply on this C40, and you might be wondering how that affects the interior space. Well, getting in and out of the back is relatively easy for someone like me, but if I was a little bit older, let's say, or not as able-bodied, it might get a bit tricky. The other thing is there's quite a large central hump too, which I guess comes from the XC40 platform, where you have a all-wheel drive SUV. There is also, I will add, seat heating for both rear passengers as well as the front two of us, so quite nice there, and certainly reminiscent of a colder country.
Yeah, exactly. But you seem to have a reasonable amount of headspace and leg space back there, which is not bad, really.
Yeah, so once you're in, you know, even with that large glass sunroof and Dave's seat all the way back, you still get more than enough room for a reasonably sized adult in the back there, so that's not an issue.
It's not all the way back, my legs are a little bit. Anyway, technology wise, I really like the Google side of things. I mean, it does get all the sort of stuff that you want to, and it's so easy to talk to. Honestly, I was having a good chat with this car the other day, just finding out, you know, when people died, and you know what the scores for England were against France, which is another thing where England died. But it was just a horror, you know, it's just great. It really is good to chat to. Honestly, it's easier to chat to than my wife.
And I guess what makes it easier is all of your preferences from your Google account, your Spotify account. You can actually sign in on here and have all of your playlists and whatnot on the screen there. So there is that extra angle of customization, if you like, or even familiarity, I would call it.
Drive wise, it's a very secure, safe place to be. It's not the most exciting car I've driven though, to be honest, and I think that would probably be when you go into the Ultimate, where you've got all-wheel drive, and that just faster off the mark situation. So I think this is a little bit more vanilla.
It's certainly more reserved in terms of its driving and acceleration, and I think in terms of the interior styling as well. It's nice to have the black and the charcoal with a couple of inserts, but I think it could do with a bit more color in here.
The trim, though, as Matthew pointed out, is great. It's so well textured, and I can see why it's such a good option. And the fact that everything's sort of recycled, but recycled PETs, which is a whole different thing to what I was thinking about, to be honest.
PET is plastic, the stuff that you put in plastic bottles, by the way, for those of you who are wondering if there are old cats and dogs in here. The audio system, I'm going to say, is quite good. This is just sort of the factory Volvo audio system, and there's a number of, I think I've counted about 8 or 9 speakers so far, so they really have kitted it out well. But if you do go for the one above, the Ultimate, you get a very nice Harman Kardon audio system, which adds an extra bit of kick to this cabin.
Yeah, and all-round safety, it's going to be safe. It is it is a Volvo, but I like the blind spot. It seems to, it's not just a discreet thing to let you know that there's something in your blind spot. It's quite a nice cover that really points it out, which is good. Both passive and interactive or active safety is all really good, and the lane keep assist is not too interfering. Actually, it does its job, does it well, but not to the point where you're thrown about like in some other vehicles.
The other thing I have to comment on is how easy all of those safety systems are to reach. It's literally, I think, 2 clicks I can count, and you get to the section of where all of them are displayed, and you can turn them off or on as you like, which is a lot easier than some other manufacturers do it, so I will give them that.
And I guess the big thing is the fact of how much range there is. I mean, 440 k's is pretty damn good, and it's going to mean that you only have to recharge maybe once or twice a week if you're really just going to do your normal commutes. So there you have it, the new Volvo C40 Recharge, a BEV from the ground up, and I have to say they've done a really good job. Plenty of range, even in this sort of motor. With it's a bit of a plain drive, but honestly 430 odd range is great, and a great crossover for both town and country, although we haven't been in the country too much. All round, not bad.
And as a Volvo owner myself, even though I do own a bit more of a performance orientated Volvo, I didn't quite like this, though for me I think the Ultimate would be the one. Anyway, I think it's time we go for a recharge now.
Good plan. You're round.